All right, guys, we are live. Can anyone let me know how the sound is? Let me know how that sound is while I play a quick little my intro video, which I do of.
Hi, I'm Amy Donald and I play Megan, and you're watching JT's Horror Discussions. It's insane, right?
It is Amy Donald, who played Megan from the film this year, and she was so nice enough to make me a clip there. Hey, May. So let's bring on the guest of honor, Jack Sholder, director of Wishmaster 2, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, Freddy's Revenge, The Hidden, Alone in the Dark, some great, great movies. So let's bring him on here. Hey, Jack.
Hey, how
How
you
you
doing,
doing, man?
JT? I'm good.
Again, thanks so much. Thanks so much for agreeing to do this. This is definitely going to be
Sure.
fun talking with you. So, let's. So, where did you? When? What made you get into filmmaking? Because I know you made like a short film in the '70s.
Yeah, well, I basically wanted to be a trumpet player, um,
Okay.
and I was very good, but I wasn't. There are people who were. It's like you're a really good golfer, and then you run into Tiger Woods,
Yeah.
uh, and so I decided I'd become a writer, and then. At a certain point, I got a little disillusioned with writing, and I thought, hey, film, why don't I become a film director? So easily said, not so easily done. And anyway, that's what I started watching a lot of movies, and you know started making some. Had no idea what I was doing. Never went to film school. There really
Yeah.
wasn't film school at that point. So, I just figured it out.
Yeah. I can relate to the music part. I'm a musician. 23
Oh,
years or so. I play guitar, but I play a few other instruments. Guitar is my main thing. But I can definitely relate with that. That it's not that easy to do it
no, it's
professionally.
not.
Yeah, which is especially
And I mean,
nowadays.
and I was playing at a pretty high level, but um, I wanted to be, uh, one of the top people, and I probably wouldn't have been. So,
Yeah. I relate. Like I said, I went to the Crane School of Music up in
oh,
Potsdam, New York.
oh, great
For
school.
no, yeah, yeah. I unfortunately I didn't graduate because I like classical music, but then that's what it was, a classical school. I couldn't
Right.
see me playing classical music for 4 years. It's just
Uh,
I'm a rock and roll guy, and so
yeah,
I learned a decent amount like the year I was there. But it is a great school for sure.
yeah.
So do you are you a big horror fan, or is it just the movies, the horror movies you decided to do over the years, or just other projects you took, or are you a fan of horror?
Not really, no. I've never been a big fan. I mean, I'm a fan of good movies. So,
Mhm.
there are some horror movies that fall into that category. There are an awful lot of
Of
horror
course.
movies that are complete garbage,
No,
in my
absolutely.
opinion. And and I know that they have lots and lots of fans. I mean, there are a lot of fans of movies that I think are just terrible. So yeah, I mean, it was never a genre that, in my plan to become a film director, that those were the kind of films that I was going to do. But that's kind of how it worked out. I mean, there was an opportunity in the early '80s. I was getting into my 30s, and I hadn't directed feature film. I'd done some shorts that had performed very well. Got awards at film festivals and stuff like that. But to move
Nice.
into features was a whole other thing. And I got an opportunity. I had a long association with New Line Cinema, and they decided to move into production because they were basically a distribution company.
Mhm.
And they
And
said
this
if
is
we can make
early
a low budget,
on with New Line. This is like
yeah,
early when they just started recently.
Well, they started actually the end of the '60s, and this was now in the
Oh,
'80s.
I didn't
So
know that they were that long.
they'd been in, yeah, they'd been in business for 10, 12 years, something like that, and they felt that they needed to move into production instead of just distribution. And at that point, Friday the 13th had just come out, and a bunch of those films, and they were made for very little money, and they made a lot of
Yeah.
money. And they thought, well, if we could do a low budget horror film, we could cash in. Which
Right. That was with the big '80s slasher craze, right at the
right,
beginning.
yeah. So I came up with an idea, and they said okay, and they paid me to write it, and then they couldn't raise the money. Didn't have enough money of their own, and then I went off and I edited The Burning, which is the first film
Great movie.
that the Weinstein brothers produced, Harvey
Yep.
and Bob, and then I kind of learned how horror films work, or got a pretty good inkling of how they worked. And I went back and I reworked the script, and for one reason or another, they were able to raise the money. New Line was, and so I directed my first feature. So
That's
how
great,
it
and
started.
that's Alone in the Dark from
Alone in the
'82.
Dark, right?
So what a great movie this is, and
Thanks.
how was writing the script for that? Did it come pretty naturally, or
Yeah. Well, I mean, I basically wanted to direct art movies, and so I was basically trying to make an art movie under the guise of making what I guess some people would call a slasher film. I mean, certainly people get slashed, so I guess it's a slasher film. But it was really sort of dealing with like what's sane and what's not. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's a group of uh, criminally insane people in a mental hospital that's run by Donald Pleasance, and includes Jack Palance and Martin Landau, and it's all electronic security. And there's a blackout, and when the lights go out, they escape, and the whole world is going crazy. So they just blend right in, and it's sort of dealing with what's crazy and what's not, what happens to society. That something as fundamental as the lights go out, and suddenly, and this had just happened. I mean, there'd been a big blackout in Manhattan, which is where I was living, and basically it lasted the minimum of 24 hours. It gradually came back over 3 days, but there was looting and all the kind of stuff that we've all gotten used to, but at that time it was kind of a new thing, and just total breakdown of society, this sort of thin veneer of civilization, as someone referred to it. So that's kind of what I was found interesting. And it takes a pretty sort of cockeyed view of the whole thing. I mean, I have a kind of an ironic sense of humor, so I think that certainly comes out in the film.
Oh, it definitely does. And I never look at it as a traditional slasher film. Like, I feel like it's a lot more than that. And I love how was working with Jack Nance and Martin Landau and Donald Pleasance was a few years off of Halloween.
Well, it was great. I mean, I had 3 great actors. Well, and I mean, actually, the whole cast was.
No, they all do great.
Fantastic. Dwight Schultz played the probably the main character, if you remember him from A-Team, where he played this kind of crazy guy. But I mean, he was a really good, legit theater actor. I'd seen him in a David Mamet play. I mean, before I had even written the script, and he's a wonderful actor, and so it was a great experience to be able to work with those guys. I learned a lot. I had been sort of preparing I mean, I'd been working as a film editor, so so that's a pretty good preparation for directing, you know. And as I mentioned, you know, I'd also directed some short films during that time. Uh, and you know, I did some theater directing. I took acting classes, although I had no interest in being an actor. I did have a musical background, which is very good if you want to be a filmmaker, because film works like music. You know, it occurs
Hmm.
in time, and it has a macro structure and a micro. You know, like the
Yeah.
structure of a whole song, or you know, the beat by beat structure, and so all of those things sort of prepared me, you know, but to actually be directing actors of that caliber was kind of daunting in a way. I mean, I felt like I was up for it and up to
Mhm.
it. So, but yeah, I mean, I had a lot to learn, and I learned a lot.
No, I can see it being a little intimidating working with such amazing actors your first film, but I mean, what a great
Yeah.
job. Like I adore that movie. Um, so your next film was A Nightmare on Elm Street 2. So does that come? How did that come about? Like following Wes Craven's original, like, but I know
Right.
Wes
Well, I
Craven
mean,
wasn't as huge of a name back then as he is today.
well, well,
He still did some films.
yeah. I mean, Wes certainly had a reputation, but I mean, you know, he had done some pretty intense horror films. You know, Last House
Yeah,
on the Left, and
Hills Have Eyes.
yeah, and The Hills Have Eyes. I mean, um, I had a long association with New Line. The head of the company, Bob Shea, and I were very close friends. And anytime they needed any editing work done, I used to do it for them and cut a bunch of trailers
Nice.
for them, which was a good way to learn about how movies are put together. And uh, Bob liked to sort of get other people's opinions on stuff. So I'd read, you know, a few early drafts of Elm Street, and I helped out a little bit with the editing. You know, not enough to really make a difference, but to help get it ready for screening. But you know, I was sort of in there. So you know, Wes um, didn't write the script for two, and I mean, for Wes, you know, that was really how he expressed himself. I mean, you know, he was really, you know, that was really who Wes was. I mean, you know, he's a very mild mannered kind of professorial kind of guy, but you know, obviously there he had a lot of dark stuff going on in his head
Yeah.
that you know came out in these movies, and so the first one made a lot of money.
Yeah.
Was like New Line had sort of gone from almost going out of business any number of times, and then a movie would come along and kind of save them,
Or
and then they'd
save them.
almost go
Yeah.
out of business again, and a movie would come along and save them at the last minute. But with Elm Street, I mean, they really hit it. Um, I mean, Alone in the Dark, yeah, it made its money back, but it really didn't do a whole lot of business. You know,
I
it didn't
feel like
really
it got
break out.
a cult following as the years went on, for sure.
Yeah,
Along
well,
with the
and actually got pretty good reviews when it came
yeah.
out. I mean, you know, Roger Ebert gave it a good review. The New York Times gave it a good review. Um, but you know, it never quite caught on. And so New Line figured, well, okay, we're going to make a sequel. You know, because like you know, all the successful horror movies, you know, were turned into franchises, and you know, so that
Mm.
was what they were going to do. And so Wes didn't write the script. They got Dave Chaskin, who worked in the distribution department and was also writing scripts. And I guess he came up with a good pitch, and they figured, you know, we just need to put out another movie called Nightmare on Elm Street with a two after it, and it has a character in it called Freddy Krueger, not
Mm.
necessarily Robert Englund, but Freddy Krueger, and we'll make some more money out of this. And But Wes never really liked the script, and he was really never that involved. And Elm Street was such a big hit that I think he had a lot of other options, and he bailed about 6 weeks before they were going to start shooting, and so
Oh, I
they
didn't
asked
know
me
that.
if I would do it, and so. So my initial reaction was no, because I didn't want to get branded as a horror film director. I didn't want to get branded as a sequel to a horror film director. So a friend of mine said, "Don't be an idiot. The movie's going to make a lot of money, and you'll have a career as a director." And that's of course what happened. It ended up making more money than the first one, which wasn't. New Line expected it would make less than the first one. It made more than the first one.
Yeah,
And
so
of course, they
that
were
was a
off and
nice
running.
surprise for them. Yeah, then they went off with
Yes.
the whole franchise.
Right. Yeah.
Someone in chat had a question of, was it true that Robert Englund wasn't initially going to be cast for Freddy? Or how did that work with getting Robert Englund back?
That's true. When I came on, they said they wanted to bring him back because they thought he was good, but his agent was asking for more money. How dare he ask for more money? And they thought that they were being taken advantage of, and they weren't, and they could just get anybody to play the part.
Yeah.
So when I came on, the first thing I said is, "Are you bringing Robert Englund back to play Freddy?" And they said, "Well, his agent's asking for more money, and we're not, and we don't want to give him any more money. So no, we're in negotiations, but no." So I said, I think you should really get him. I think he's really good. I mean, because at that point, Jason, was just like a stunt guy who popped up, killed somebody, and disappeared. He wasn't a character.
Englund has that charisma that he brought to the
Freddy Krueger character. I mean, he's a great actor. He's a fantastic actor, and that was one of the great things about the movie, was that the killer, instead of just being somebody that pops up, with a mask and kills somebody and goes away, he actually, had a personality. He enjoyed being bad, and so they finally, about 2 weeks before we were going to start shooting, maybe even less, they said, "Okay, we managed to make a deal with him, so he's going to be in the movie." So I said, "Oh, that's great." I think it was about 2 weeks before we started shooting. The interesting thing is that I never interviewed anybody for the role. I mean, one of my
Robert. Once you heard Robert was coming back, then it's just
well, but I mean, you would think that they would have brought other people in for the role. Yeah. But I think that their thought was, well, just get anybody, any old person, and put them in that makeup, and it'll work.
Yeah.
As opposed to, well, we need to cast an actor who can actually deliver lines and all that. So, and I actually thought, when I thought back on it, I thought, well, they were probably just playing hardball, that they were planning to bring him back all along, but they were, but they had to say, no, we're definitely not doing it, as a kind of a bargaining point, where you just say no, and then the other side has to sort of make some concessions.
Yeah.
And I happened to be talking to a woman who had been the head of production at New Line. I was out at LA this summer, and I said, so were you thinking about getting Robert all along, but you're just playing hardball? And she said, no, we just figured we'd get anybody and, just make him up to look like Freddy, and that would be it. So
I got people in chat, and I'm also thinking, can you imagine the series without Robert Englund? If it would have went that way.
Well, actually, Robert and I were at a film festival this summer where we both got Life Achievement Awards, and he actually thanked me. Felt that I was the reason that he, that if I hadn't sort of fought for him, that he he might not have gone on to play Freddy, and would have been several $1 million less rich than he is now.
Yeah. I can't imagine the series without him as Freddy. And I think that's why the remake that came out in 2010 didn't do well, because it just wasn't Robert. And he's just the one who could he's the only one in my eyes who could play that character. Like after all these movies in the series. How long did the movie take to shoot?
I think it took like 30, 35, 36 days. Let me see here.
Oh, wow.
Somebody else asked me though. I should probably know the answer to that. Let me see here. Schedule. This is.
Oh, nice. Wow.
So, by the way, let's see, schedule. Well, it looks like they scheduled it for 30 days. Somehow, I think it took more than. Let's see here, 30, 29. What day is this? Day 31. Day 30. Yeah. So I guess you had about 30 days or something like that, plus
a few more days.
Few days a second.
Okay. I got a question here. Go ahead.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, question here from my friend Gareth, Video Tasties, who you were on his channel last year. So he asks, does Mr. Sholder think the HD version of Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is too bright and reveal too much of Freddy's look? Some people prefer the VHS that keeps him in the shadows.
I'm not sure if I've watched the HD. You mean the Blu-ray version?
Yeah, probably the newest transfer. Yeah.
Honestly, I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yeah, I don't think I've seen the Blu-ray either.
I've seen. Well, actually, I'm just trying to think. There were a couple of screenings that I was at, and I'm not sure whether they showed the Blu-ray or whether they had a 35 millimeter print. I thought it looked really good. I thought the cinematography was. Mark Patton was also there. We were both struck by just how good the cinematography was. It really had a good look. I mean, the question people ask is, were you nervous to be, doing the sequel to this very successful film? And I mean, my answer was no, because I thought that I could do a better job. I thought it was a good film in a lot of ways, but I thought the filmmaking wasn't that great. I mean, I think Wes's New Nightmare
is great.
Is he's a much better filmmaker at that point. That the filmmaking was kind of basic. And I felt that I could do a better job. And there wasn't a lot of pressure put on me, because New Line just basically, they just wanted to put out another movie called Nightmare on Elm Street with a 2 after it.
Get that sequel.
They just wanted to get it out there, and they hoped that it would be scary and it would get an audience. And so the only thing that they told me was keep Freddy dark. They didn't like the makeup from the original, so we hired Kevin Yeager, which was his first really big show to do the makeup. I mean, he'd been a protege of Rick Baker, and
Yeah. Yep.
and,
Another
and
amazing makeup artist, Rick Baker.
yeah,
Amazing.
yes, certainly. But I mean, Kevin, Kevin, you know, rather than being the kind of the Fangoria, the kid who grew up, reading Fangoria and looking at pictures of, people with various parts of their bodies chopped off and so on
Yeah.
and so forth. He was a sculptor. He was a degree in fine arts, I think. So he had a more refined kind of sensibility, and so he redid Freddy's makeup. New Line was very happy with that. I mean, he ended up doing it for all the shows, and the only thing is, New Line said keep him dark, keep him dark, keep him scary, keep him spooky. That was they felt that was part of the key to the success, and so that's
Oh yeah.
that's what we did. I mean, I remember there's that one scene where he confronts Mark Patton early on, Jesse, and
Mhm.
he says, "You've got the body, I've
And
got the
I got the
brains," and he sort
brain.
of and he pulls back his
Great.
skull, and I just remember Jacques Haken, the director of photography, spending a lot of time setting it up. So he just got this. He had there's a light called a snoot. It's
Okay.
got like a little a little kind of a narrow kind of a tube on the end of it. So it just
Okay.
projects a tiny little circle of light,
Yeah,
and getting
straightforward.
it just exactly right so that everything was dark except this one little, and it's spent a lot of time, getting the lighting really right on him.
Which
So
I
if
think is
if they lightened
great.
it up, that was what?
I was saying I think that's great because some people in chat are saying, and I've always said, I think you did a better job with the film. It's my favorite in the franchise. Like Wes Craven's original, of course, it's a classic, but 2 is my favorite. It has my favorite score. It has my favorite cinematography. It has the most dark and evil Freddy. It has my favorite line in the franchise, with "You're all my children now," with the fire behind them. That is
Yeah,
so great. That is such a
yeah,
great scene. That's my favorite shot in the series. It has my favorite practical effect when
yeah.
Jesse's in his friend's room and they
Oh
Freddy
yeah,
cuts through and comes at him. Like, what a great effect! Like, how is that
yeah.
filming? Like filming that effect there.
Well, it was done by the second unit mostly. Uh, the way, um, I mean, filming special effects is kind of is like doing animation. It's like little bits and little bits, and then you wait and little bits while the makeup people, do this and
Yeah.
do that. And so normally, second unit will do that because they don't want the first unit with however many the 50 people and all the main actors doing this while they're just doing effects. I mean, if any effects that are done on the actor himself is directed by the director, but the things
Okay.
like where the hand, all of the little insert things with the blades breaking through the fingers, and all of these various
So
things
good.
were filmed by the second unit. So about half of it was shot by the second unit, but we were shooting on a stage because the house was built on a stage,
Mhm.
and it's actually the old Desilu Studios. It's where they used to shoot I Love Lucy, believe it or not.
Oh, okay. Actually, my mom's
Yeah,
a
which is
huge I Love Lucy fan. She's been
yeah.
obsessed with
So it
Lucy
was
since
it was
it started.
pretty cool to be shoot. I mean, it was my first time shooting on a. Well, I mean, it was my second feature. It was my first time shooting on a stage, which was fantastic. Because it's they're built to make movies, and it's
Yeah,
like
yeah,
you're in Hollywood. I was still living in New York, but here I am. I'm in Hollywood shooting inside of a film studio, so that
yeah.
that was very exciting. And um, so the second unit was on one set shooting this stuff, and I was on the other set shooting the regular stuff. But
Mhm.
I was able to keep running over Whenever
back to
I
them.
would shoot, I would go over to just see how they were doing, and so, for instance, they were shooting like I remember that they were shooting the thing where the blades come out of the hand,
Yeah,
and it
and
was
then it
like,
breaks
wow,
out.
it's really cool, and they'd kind of pull this thing, and the blades would come out, it would go,
Yeah.
and they were doing it kind of like that, and I said, look, you can't film this like it's an effect.
Yeah.
It's somebody's hand where these blades are cut. It's got to be like, even though we just see the hand, we have to feel that there's a person reacting to all this. That it's not just boom. Let's see how this cool effect works. So
well, like how Tom Savini always says about how he films effects like magic tricks, like for the camera.
Well, yeah.
I've always liked that analogy.
Well, actually, speaking about that, when I did The Burning, Tom Savini did the effects on that, and there was this scene. I don't know whether you've ever seen the movie, but
it's one of my favorite 80s slashers, The Burning.
So there's a scene with the kids that are on the raft, and there's the canoe.
That's a great scene.
And there's this thing where he like jumps up and he has these garden shears, and the kid goes no, and he puts his hand out and he snips the kid's fingers off.
That's great.
So Tom had this thing. It was like a foam hand, but it looked like shit. It looked like one of these things people have at a football game.
I've noticed that every time I watch it, the hand is too big.
Well, if you slow it down, the hand is really phony. Like he didn't spend any time on the hand. He just sort of basically got the skin tone right, and the clippers come in, and when the fingers get cut, the little pieces kind of fly off. And so it's kind of one of those things that if you the way it's cut, when you cut it in and you make it just the right length, which is not very long at all.
Yeah, you don't want to
see the
reveal
hand,
how
you see
it's
the
done.
clippers, and then all you just see is, and it's like 6 frames or something, and it's like, whoa, this is fantastic. I mean, it works so great. That if you stopped and went frame by frame, you'd say, this isn't very good. But that's not how you watch a movie. So when you watch it in real time, it really works great. So and actually being an editor, I kind of understood how all that stuff worked. So how you take all these little pieces and make something happen. But the thing is that like I said, you can't film it as an effect. You have to film it as that these are characters who are going through something. Somebody said, what's the hardest part of making a horror film? Good characters, because if you don't care about the characters, then then nobody's going to care about the film. All of the good horror films, you're really involved in these people,
Yeah, and they don't want to. If you don't relate to the characters, then you don't care what happens to these people.
Yeah, right. And
it's like they're just there as bodies.
Right, and it's just like there's just like all these little details that any little detail no one would notice, but if you pay attention to all the details, it's better. It's it's more, because you're trying to create an illusion that people are going to sort of buy into. And so the more attention that you pay to the details, the more it feels real, and the more the audience will buy into the film. So.
Oh yeah, I'm a big practical effects guy in horror. Like I always want to see practical effects as much as possible. Like, dude, CGI is fine if it's done right, and or if they want to touch up, practical with CGI. Like my favorite movie of all time is The Thing. I think Rob Bottin's work on The Thing is like the best practical effects work done in a film.
The John Carpenter one.
Yeah, the John Carpenter remake. Yeah, I think it's my favorite movie of all time.
Yeah, it's a really good one. Yes,
so good.
But yes, I mean, absolutely.
So I'm guessing that you guys pulled that effect off of Jesse's body being torn open by Freddy. it's right up against the wall. So I'm guessing Englund was on the
Right.
other side of the wall and came through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
But it looks
Yeah.
so
I mean,
good. Even when you
I mean,
know how they do it, it looks so good.
yeah. I mean, if you were to stop and study it, it's all very comprehensible. Like, I mean, CGI, who the fuck knows what's going on there? It's all,
Yeah,
I mean, that
exactly.
really is kind of magic. The fact that they can create a person
Yeah.
or a thing that wasn't there, that looks absolutely completely realistic in every possible way. I mean, if you look at the new Avatar.
I haven't seen it, but I've seen some. I've seen the trailer. I've seen some clips for it. It's
Yeah, I
amazing
mean, I
what they
have
do.
my quibbles about the movie, but it's just as an accomplishment, it's
Oh yeah,
stunning. It's unbelievable what they're able to do. So the stuff that we were doing, relatively crude. I mean, we were shooting it on film. Film goes through a camera. You open up, if you have a film camera, you open up the camera and there's like, gears, and, the film gets pulled down and a little shutter opens up, and the light exposes and the shutter closes down, and then the film gets pulled down to the next frame. The shutter opens up, and this happens 24 times a second, and it's very comprehensible. You can see what's going on.
yeah,
There's a little bit of chemistry involved, that the light hits this silver
yeah. Certain
nitrate
way.
or whatever. But I mean, now who the fuck knows what's going on in these cameras? I don't. But
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
you have to be a so yeah, I mean, and the special effects are kind of the same way. They're like kind of cogs and wheels and like Rube Goldberg-y kind of things. Like, I mean, um, it was all storyboarded out. I mean, I supervised the storyboards,
yeah,
so that the it wasn't like the second unit was making it all up. Everything was all every
yeah.
single shot was
Each
planned.
shot was with the storyboard for each
That
shot.
how this was going to happen, so that every
Yeah.
single shot. As a matter of fact, let's see here. Well, here you can see the storyboards here.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. You can see, yeah, the hand with the fingers coming out. Yep. That's great.
So
And then the hand tears out of his hand. I
Yeah.
love that. Yeah.
So,
So,
I mean,
each shot is written beforehand.
yeah.
That's
So,
great.
Yeah, so you can see. I mean, it's all planned out,
Yeah.
shot
And
by shot.
It's the way to do it, I guess, because you want it all
Yeah.
choreographed. And which way? Because I know it depends. You don't want to linger on an effect for too long, because then it starts to show it's an effect, and the lighting to keep things darker or lighter.
Well,
and
also,
just lighting them the right
they
way.
have to build all these things,
Oh yeah,
So
yeah. I
it's
can
like,
imagine the work.
I mean, for instance, some when Freddy pulls back his skull, his brain is kind of pulsing. Well,
I love
so
that.
there's tubes, that have to get run up into this thing. So it's like, well, they need to know where the shot is, so they know, can I put the tube on this side, or can I hide it? Where can I hide the tube so you don't see it? So so all these things need to be planned out.
It's definitely, I'm sure it's a science. Like, it's a science that you get
Yeah.
down. The more movies you make, the more you work on.
Yeah, well, and being an editor, I understood how these things are made up of. Like, you take like 5 little pieces. The guy holds up the shears. The kid goes like this. You cut the rubber fingers. You cut back. The kid says, "Ah," and he holds up, the fake hand with the, the good hand with the fingers cut off and the blood spurting out, and it looks like it happened.
Oh yeah, and then he comes down into the throat of the other person, like right in the throat. It looks.
Yeah.
I have a question now that you mentioned the burning that you edited on it, and something I always notice when I watch the movie. every time that Cropsey brings the shears up, there's no blood on them. It's completely clean, the shears. Did they just use the same shot for each time they show him on the raft, like lifting it up, or was it different shots of him, if you remember?
Well, you're probably right. I have no idea. I don't.
Yeah, because it
don't
looks like the
remember.
same shot. So I was always
Well, I mean,
wondering about that.
they probably. I mean, my guess is that they probably shot like a whole bunch of different takes of it, and I just took whichever takes look good.
And there's
As a matter
so
of
much
fact,
special effects work in that scene. Like, I can't imagine how long it took to get that scene down. There's just so much effects work on the raft.
Right. Well, I mean, I didn't really know because I was sitting back in the editing room,
Yeah. So I'm sure just editing it had to be a lot of fun. Just seeing,
it was fun. Yeah, it actually was a lot of fun.
Nice.
As a matter of fact, we shot it in around Buffalo, New York. It was shot in a camp that was outside of Buffalo, and actually this was 1980, I think. It was 1980, summer of 1980, and so they had me up there, because when you're shooting a film, the editors as soon as a scene is completed, you give it to the editor. The editor cuts it. It's not like you wait till the whole film is shot. The film's being edited while you're shooting.
Yeah, so they go scene by scene. When the scene's done,
yeah,
come
so that
come to you. And
right. So initially they had a production office in Buffalo itself, and I remember that I got there, and it was like lunchtime, and they said, "Hey, they've got there's this place that makes these wings that are really good. They have like hot sauce on them, and and they serve it. You dip it in like blue cheese dressing." And I said, "Oh," and so they ordered a bunch of them and said, "Wow, these are really good." I mean, nobody had ever heard of buffalo wings at that point, but it was like, okay, so
nice. What nowadays? How do you feel about Nightmare 2?
I don't think it's one of my best. I would say The Hidden certainly is a much better film, I think, or a better film. I think it's a much better film. I think Alone in the Dark. There are a few other films I made, but the ones really like 1201 that not a lot of people have seen. That's really, really good film.
I gotta check that out. I saw that when I was looking through the filmography that you've done.
Yeah, you should really watch 1201. It's one of my favorites of all the ones that I've done.
Oh, I gotta definitely check it out. I feel embarrassed. I haven't seen The Hidden in so long that I don't know much. I remember much, but I know we have some Hidden fans in here. That hold on, let me see if I can find the question they asked.
Well, I feel like when I watched the film, I feel like I did a good job directing it. I wouldn't call it a very personal film. I got hired 6 weeks before we were going to start to shoot. Something like that. I was living in New York. The next day I'm on a plane. I'm suddenly I'm in LA. I'm suddenly in charge. The train was already moving down the track. I mean, they hadn't done any casting, but they'd hired Jacques Haken, the DP, who had shot the original, which I was very happy with because I really liked this work. They hired a special effects guy who knew how to do all these effects that I had no idea how to do, and they'd hired a production designer, but they hadn't cast anybody. But they hadn't gotten the locations. I mean, there were a whole bunch of things, and it was extremely stressful. I mean, I was really like very, very, very stressed because I was just thrown into this thing and had to get it done, which is why there's all these storyboards and all this planning, so that I feel like you make the film in prep and then you execute it in production. So you kind of have to have it all figured out. I mean, things will change. You might see a better way of doing something.
You don't want to go in without plan without anything being planned and just run in and make a movie. You got to
Yeah.
pre-plan it, like you said.
Well, I mean, if I had a 60-day schedule, I could walk in and say, oh, I don't know. What do you think? I don't, but here it's, you
Yeah.
got 30 days to shoot this thing. You got to say, okay, he goes here, you put the camera here, we're doing this,
Yeah.
There's not a lot of time. So I feel that I did a very good job. I mean, I don't know how much of my personality's in there. I think if somebody else had directed it, it would have, there are certain little things where I can kind of feel my personality, but I have mixed feelings about it. Certainly on one level, I love it because the movie came out, made a lot of money, and and I directed films for the next 20 some years, so it was really, really good for me. And every year I get a nice royalty check, I have to say. And also, it's kind of had a very interesting life of its own, with the sort of the whole queer cinema thing, which is never on any of our minds. I mean, it never occurred to anybody, but it's going on to have this other life, which is, for me, I think it's great. I mean, it has this whole audience that for them, it's a very, very meaningful film, something that they can identify with, and they've been great fans of the film. And the film was always kind of seen as a kind of the orphan of the series because it didn't quite conform. And what's happened is I think it's really getting a lot of reevaluation. I mean, it's being taught in universities now, and I think people kind of see it as a kind of more of a one-off, that it doesn't quite conform to the others.
Yeah, that's what I like about it, honestly, because I feel like he got I like the first three, and then after that he got too comedic and silly.
Yes.
As it went on.
Well, and if there's any part of my personality that got put in there, it's that, which is that I kind of wanted to do it my way, as opposed to feeling like I had to kind of stick to the script in the broader sense of the word.
Rules or whatever.
The
Freddy.
rules, yeah. Right. Yeah.
And I feel like it worked out great. Like I said, I know a lot of people, like you said, that it's getting reappraisal over the years. It definitely is, because I know a decent amount of people that they put that as their favorite in the franchise, like I do. And it's great to hear that more and more as the years are going by.
Well, yeah, it's nice to have that recognized, and I think the performances are good. I think it's well shot. I think it's well put together. I mean, I think as a director, I'm a pretty good craftsman.
For sure.
And I think it's a better crafted film than the first one.
I agree. Not to knock on the first film in Wes Craven, but
not at all.
It was something different, and I like in any franchise like that when they take a chance and do something different, and that's what you did.
And that's also
different, and it worked out great.
And that's also to New Line's credit. I mean, each of the 6 Nightmare films, 7 if you count Wes's New Nightmare, they're all different. I mean, they all have their own personality, which had a lot to do with the fact that they hired different directors and gave them a certain amount of leeway.
That was great. Question in chat. Another question, if I may. Have you directed a movie, Jack, that you didn't like the script?
I've directed a few movies where I wasn't crazy about the script, but you kind of have to find if you're going to direct a movie, at least for me, you kind of have to find a way to fall in love with it. So you feel like what we're doing really is meaningful. And there have been some scripts that weren't great, but they were pretty good, and you find a way to really believe in them and to find your way into it. I mean, there was one movie that I did where I thought this script is a piece of shit, which is Arachnid, which is a film I did in Spain. I mean, I had another movie with a much bigger budget, and basically it fell through, and it was like, fuck, I gotta work. I gotta make a movie, or I'm gonna keep everything on track here. I got a mortgage and a family and two kids and a wife, and I got to make a movie, and it was in Barcelona. So I lived in Barcelona for 6 months. They get I had a beautiful apartment. They paid for everything. They paid me my usual fee. The only thing is that I had to do the stupid script, and it was very difficult. Because I just didn't believe in it, and I think the movie sucks. Just don't think it's. I mean, I've actually had people say that they like it, but I just think it doesn't look good. It's not photographed very well.
Yeah, we have someone here said, my friend Alexi said, still sorry about how Arachnid turned out. Jack, as a Brian Yuzna fan and a general arachnophile, I had higher hopes for that one.
Yeah, well,
I have met some people who like it, though.
Yeah, I mean, look, there are people who like some really bad movies.
There's an audience for everybody. For every film, there's an audience.
Yeah, and there are people who think The Godfather's, not that good. I mean, if you go on Yelp or something, the Grand Canyon gets a 4.95.
Yes.
So, a few people said, well, that's great,
that's what I love though about film, is everyone has different tastes and opinions and likes and dislikes,
But I did feel that that it was poorly shot. It was completely uninspired. The script was just really stupid, and I thought, well, I can work on the script and make it better, and make it a little more believable. But I mean, it was the issues with the script were insurmountable, and the way that the way that they shoot movies in Spain, or at least this movie. I mean, there's actually a lot of really good horror films that have come out of Spain. A lot of really good directors, and actually the Fantastic Factory that Brian Yuzna was running made some really good films. There's a film called Rec, REC.
Yeah, the found footage one.
Jaime Balaguerro. They actually did a remake, an American remake, which wasn't very good. But the original, is that what it was called? But the original was really, really good.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, really, really good. I mean, it actually scared me.
It's very effective how they did. And Spain does have a lot of movies and directors. I'm a big Italian horror fan. Dario Argento, Lucio Fulci, Mario Bava, and it's definitely an acquired taste for like people who are trying to get into foreign films. Like I know a lot of hardcore horror fans that try to get into foreign films, like particularly Italian or Japanese horror, and either it's not for them or they have to watch a few movies before it clicks. Before they get that acquired taste for it.
Yeah, the Italian ones I'm not that crazy about. The Japanese ones and the Korean ones are fantastic.
No, yeah, that's
Did you see a film called I Saw the Devil?
Yeah, I Saw the Devil.
By the same guy that did Train to Busan. The one about a serial killer, and the serial killer kills this cop's fiance or whatever, and he puts a tracker, he shoves it down the guy's throat and keeps tracking him, and
that's a fun one. Actually, a friend of mine and me were going to do a watch party live a few weeks ago of that, and kind of fell through. We're going to try to reschedule it, but great movie.
Great movie.
How was working with Kyle MacLachlan as a huge David Lynch fan and Twin Peaks fan? And I love Kyle, so I mean that had to be great working with him on the Hidden.
Yeah, he was great. I mean, he was very subdued, and I really thought. Well, it was interesting because he wasn't cast until a few days before we started shooting. We didn't have a cast. I mean,
okay, I didn't know that.
We didn't have him and Nuri until I think Wednesday or Thursday. We were going to start shooting Monday, and it was like, well, we don't really have our two main characters yet. And said to the casting director, get anybody who will come in, get him to come in. And Kyle was one of the people, and I really liked him. New Line wasn't crazy about him. They said they thought he was too weak, and I said, well, that's what's so great is that he looks like he's weak, but he's this character who does these things, and if you feel like the character can't quite do it, but he does, you're really rooting for him. And he was, I mean, he was sort of perfectly cast for the role. I mean, he was for the role. When I was shooting it, I felt like he was getting lost in the film. That because Michael Nuri had all the, he had a lot more lines and a lot more to do, and he was a much bigger character.
Yeah.
And then when the film was all put together, I realized it was really Kyle's film. He just had this kind of quiet intensity about him that, I mean, he's really one of the better actors that I've worked with, and I've worked with some really good ones. I've worked with some really good ones, and he's definitely right up there. It was interesting because the very first day, this is now my third feature, so I'm starting to get some experience now. I would say that I think on 1201, which I think was maybe my sixth or seventh feature, I remember it was like 2:00 in the morning, and we were shooting on the set, and I kind of looked around and I said, I actually know what I'm doing. Which was the first time that I got. I mean, on my fourth movie or my fifth movie, I was like, I know what I'm doing, and then I found out that I didn't. But
I guess it's like music, it's always an ongoing journey. You can always learn more.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I did kind of figure it out. I mean, the last few films that I did. I kind of knew what I was doing, but the very first day, I set up this first shot with Kyle, and I looked through the lens, and he looked bigger. And then I looked at him, and he's like kind of scrawny. And I looked through the lens, and he looked bigger. And I said, "Wow, I guess that's what movie stars are all about. That you look through the lens, and something happens. That there's something about them where they." I did a film. I had Rebecca De Mornay was in it, and I did not think she was very good at all as an actress. But when we looked at the dailies, she was good. She was much better when you looked at the dailies.
Must be great to get that surprise, like that things are working out good. Like that first when you think otherwise, and then you get that surprise. They're like, oh no, this is good.
And it's not like it's not like they know some secret. It's just something. It's a gift,
Yeah.
It's
absolutely.
like, I mean, you're a musician. There's certain people who can just really play. They play that stuff, and it's just whoa, and somebody else could play the same notes, but it wouldn't be the same.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Some people just have it.
Oh, that's great. So Wishmaster 2. How'd that come about? Because I'm a huge fan of the first two, and I actually prefer your second one. The first was great. Robert Kurtzman directed, which I didn't know that when the movie first came out. Because he obviously with K&B Effects, Nicotero, Kurtzman Berger, And
Yeah.
I was surprised when I heard that he did the effects and he directed it also. So how did the second one come about?
Well, they had actually offered me the first one, and I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
interested. I didn't think the script was that good. It
Hmm.
just didn't interest me, and I think that I think that was Kurtzman's first feature.
I'm pretty
I
sure
mean,
it was directing. Yeah.
he said and you know, I saw it, and I didn't think it was all that great, you know, and then they offered me to do the sequel, and I wasn't particularly keen on doing the sequel, but uh, I needed to work, you
Yeah.
know. I
Was it
needed a
also
movie
to
to
do
do.
with like you said you weren't too big into horror movies, so that was something. Was that something you're trying to get away from?
Well, yeah. I mean, I thought that my career had sort of progressed to the point where I didn't have to do a number two for a
Yeah.
film. I mean, they offered me soon after. I mean, here's a couple of ironies. Soon after The Hidden, Warner Brothers wanted me to do Gremlins 2. At that point,
Oh, really?
Gremlins was the biggest, was the top grossing film in the history of Warner Brothers.
Oh,
And they
yeah.
wanted me to do Gremlins 2. And I read the script and I said, I don't think the script is very good. I'm not interested. And this
Hmm.
was like a big movie, big
Oh,
movie.
yeah.
So I turned it down, you know, and then they, you know, they made me a better offer, you know, and they had me come in and meet the head of production, who tried to
Wow.
talk me, and I turned it down again, you know. And you know, this is a big studio movie for Warner Brothers with a big budget and, you know, 60 days and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I've often wondered if I made a mistake. I mean, Joe Dante, who's a terrific director, and ended
Oh,
up
yeah. Love
finally
Dante.
doing it. But you know, initially he didn't want to do it. So I turned down, you know, a really big sequel.
Was
And
there a
now,
particular reason, or was it just like you said you didn't want to do a number two,
well, I
or
didn't
you
think
didn't
the
like the
script was.
script either?
I would have done it. I would have. It wasn't just because it was a number two.
Yeah,
I
the
didn't want
script.
to do it because I didn't think the script was good, and I
Yeah.
didn't really. I wasn't feeling it, you know. And I thought also. I mean, after um, the Hidden didn't make a lot of money. It never really kind of hit, but everybody in Hollywood loved it. So
Yeah.
I was like very popular for about 6 months. You know, I mean, I was getting lots and lots of offers. But what I wanted to do was, I mean, in order to make a great movie, you have to have a great script. So I
Oh,
lucked
absolutely.
into a great script with The Hidden. Um, the Hidden was a fantastic script, and I read it, and I knew this was going to be a good movie. And I felt like I just knew how to that this was just fit right in with how I
Yeah, you just had that
saw
instinct,
the
that gut
world.
instinct.
I just had a feel for it, you know, like
Yeah.
the humor I got, and you know, it was. I always wanted to do. I always loved Sidney Lumet's um, cop movies. You know, Serpico and Prince of the City and Dog Day. You know,
Serpico. Dog Day Afternoons was great.
yeah, Serpico. I mean, all those movies.
Serpico.
I mean, they were fantastic, and I just loved those kind of movies. So this was like a cop movie, but with aliens. Anyway, um, so I was hoping to get uh, an A list script. So I was getting, you know, I was sort of like a high B list guy. I wasn't an A list director after The Hidden. You know, I
Mhm.
was still a genre director. If I'd done one more movie and it would have done really well, it would have put me over the top.
Yeah.
And I was, so I thought, well, you know, do I really want to do a sequel to somebody else's successful movie? You know, at this point,
Honestly, I
because
think
I've
it was a
done,
good choice because I never liked Gremlins 2. It's all right,
yeah.
but I never cared for the second one.
Well, I've thought a lot about it. You know, like should I have just done it, and then I would have been, you know, it was an A-list movie. You know, it
Yeah.
was a big movie. It was a big movie for Warner Brothers. But you know, if I didn't feel it, I'm not
Yeah.
sure I would have made a good movie. You know,
Yeah. You
and
got to feel that connection or passion to it or something. Yeah.
And so with Wishmaster 2, and actually another ironic thing was was Disney wanted me to do Arachnophobia, and I said I don't want to do a movie about spiders, and they really tried to talk me into it. They had me come in for meetings, and they really tried to do what they could to talk me into it. And it had like a $12 million budget, which was a pretty good budget at that time. I mean, this was like 1990 or something.
Yeah.
And then 10 years later, I did this shitty movie with 1/5 the budget, with a shitty script called Arachnid. So so there you go, because I needed to work. But as far as Wishmaster 2, they said basically you can write the script and you can do whatever you want. We don't care. We just want a movie called Wishmaster 2 with
sounds like Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, it was the same thing. So I thought, well, the premise is really kind of interesting. What if you could wish for something and then whatever it's like, be careful what you wish for.
You just twists it a little bit, twist the wishes to come back on them.
I thought, well, I could have some fun with this, who are people who would have these, what are things that people really wish for that they could wish they hadn't wished for after they got their wish. And I thought, well, I could go to Las Vegas and break the bank, I wish this person would die, or I wish this person would go fuck himself, which we actually put in there. I wish I could get out of prison.
That's such a great scene, man. I love Wishmaster 2 more than the original. I always have. I love Morgana. I forget the actress's name who played Morgana.
Yeah, she was really good.
Such a big crush on her back when the movie first came out.
Yeah, she was. It would have been a mistake to have gotten involved with her. But Holly something. Yeah. So I really liked the movie. I mean, because first of all, it sort of came out of my head, and it kind of it sort of dealt with a lot of issues that I kind of found interesting. I mean, when I look back on my films, it seems like there's a current of social commentary that sort of threads through the ones that I felt attached to. I mean, certainly The Hidden, Alone in the Dark, Wishmaster. There is a lot of social commentary in there, and I thought it was a pretty good script since I wrote it myself. And
I love the story.
And and it was reasonably fun to make, So I was quite happy with the way it turned out.
Was Andrew Divoff always going to be brought back for the second one, or was that?
Yes, he was.
He was. Yeah. I love Divoff. He gives such an amazing performance.
Yeah, he was really good. I mean, I have to say, that makeup was murder. I mean,
to get on
toward the end of the shoot, I mean, the makeup wasn't. I mean, like I know, Robert Englund's face toward the end of the shoot was pretty torn up, from having to have this stuff plastered to his face all day and then ripped off at the end of each day. But Andrew had to wear these contacts when he was in the gin thing that were kind of like, the last week or two, it was like having someone put sand in your eye every day. He was in pain.
Yeah,
poor guy. I mean, he really suffered. I did the best I could, but he was just, he was not in a good mood the last week or two, because it was just he was so uncomfortable.
Really, I gotta say, I like the makeup on the gin in the 2 more than the first one.
Yeah,
I guess a running theme with you, because I love the makeup on Freddy more in the second, your one in the second one than the first one. Same with Wishmaster, second over the first.
Yeah, no, he was. I mean, Andrew was really good, and you know, he's a very interesting guy. He speaks like 4 or 5 languages. He's a very, very smart
I've
guy.
heard that before,
Um,
actually. Yeah, he seems
he's
like an amazingly smart person.
and I had actually worked with him before uh, when I did By Dawn's Early Light, HBO movie, which is a very good movie. I don't know whether you've seen that one, but
No, that one I
it's a
haven't
really good
seen.
movie.
I
You should
got
really check it
that
out.
and 1201. I gotta definitely check those
Yeah,
two out.
those are the other two that I think are really, really good. And also the very last one that I did, uh, 12 Days of Terror. It's interesting that I've done 12 movies, 2 movies that have the number 12 in them. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But By Dawn's Early Light, it basically the Russians launch a nuclear attack against Washington D.C. They basically blow up Washington D.C. and it's what happens like over the next 24 hours. And anyway, there are these conversations between the president and the president of Russia, and the president of Russia has like an assistant who, and you only hear their voice, but because Andrew spoke fluent Russian, his
Yeah.
parents were diplomats, so I think he grew up in South America, but they spoke Russian in his family. So right off the bat,
speaks Russian in the
English,
movie.
Russian, Spanish, fluent.
He speaks Russian in Wishmaster too.
Yeah,
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so that was a little bit of the fun of it, and I actually love the scenes where he's speaking Russian.
Yeah, with
great.
the what's his name, Korikov or something, the Russian guy.
Yeah,
he gets out of the prison with him.
Yeah.
I think how was the effects work on that? Because I know that had some CGI, but it looked great.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't look
No, most of the effects were practical.
Yeah, and they were touched up with CGI. Some of them, I know, like the wheel spinning, the roulette wheel. Was that practical?
No, they were practical. Yeah, most of those effects, like the whole scene in the casino. I mean, which we didn't have a big budget, but somehow we managed to put together a whole casino. I mean, we found a building. I think it was a department store that had been closed, and they just had some big open spaces, and so we kind of turned it into a film studio, and built a casino in there. And then we had all this stuff going on, and yeah, I mean the casino was actually a lot of fun to shoot. Again, it's a lot of work, because with when you're doing these kinds of things with special effects, it's lots and lots of little pieces,
Yeah. I love that effect in there with it's silly, but I love it when the girl shits out the coins.
Right.
That's great.
All right. He says, well, you crapped out.
Yeah. I just love everything about that movie. I've held it dear to me since when it came out in 99.
My slightly warped sense of humor.
I got a very warped sense of humor as well. Anybody in chat want to have any questions for Jack before I let him go here? And I can't thank you enough again, Jack, for doing this. This is great. I'll scroll through.
Okay, well, if nobody else has any questions.
Yeah, no, I think I went through some of them as they were coming in, so I think you're good. Thank you again so much, Jack, for coming on. This is amazing, and thank you, chat, for tuning in. And anyone who sees the replay after this, and thanks for tuning in. And Jack, if you want, just stay on after I go live. I'll talk to you for a minute or two.
Okay.
But all right, guys, this is Jack Sholder, director of many great movies, and a few that I got to definitely check out now. People are saying thank you for the interview, and that was fantastic. So everyone had a good time, so that's great. But all right, guys, I'll have a video up probably on Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 later, guys, and we'll see you later. Take care.
Okay, see ya.